I'd like to thank you again for joining us this afternoon. And we would like this opportunity to share for your consideration the review of research that was developed in response to a need expressed by two of the REL Southwest alliances. And I have to mention that the alliance that I'm referring to, particularly in Oklahoma, is composed of many Native Americans. In fact, they represent 9 tribes in Oklahoma. So whenever we were in consultation and meeting with them, they expressed a need, and that was to increase family engagement. So we started working on a resource, and its goal was to increase familiarity with research to encourage family engagement in rural Native American communities, and a way to use that research to inform and refine their own programs, which is really critical. But before we get into it very much, I'd like to pause just a moment and hear from you. Down in the questions and discussion chat pod right below the slides, would you enter 2 or 3 barriers or struggles that you have had with family and community engagement? I can see we've got a few people typing. There's no need to be shy, but I know all of you are here because you are looking for more strategies. What are you trying to, what would you like to address? Yes, lack of engagement or lack of participation. How do we bump this up? As we said, for promising practices for engaging Native families and getting them to the school meetings and the activities. That is a challenge. And it has been for a while. And I believe Stephanie referred to that. The outsider feeling like they don't belong. That has been mentioned quite a bit by our alliance members on how do you address that? How do you help them feel welcome and establishing trust? This is awesome. You're doing my work for me right now, and I'm glad you're typing this in because all of these are very important. And they're things that we need to address. Time, family structures, transportation, and the rural setting. Yes, this, most of the work in Oklahoma was focused in rural. The New Mexico was not as much, but there are unique challenges to the rural and to the urban. And we recognize that where you work and live is unique, and that with that in mind, we ask you to consider which strategies would work for where you are. For example, we've presented this material at the NIEA conference in Reno, and we were looking at possible strategies. One of the strategies that was brought up was home visits. Some of the people in the session thought that was a great strategy. Others said, no way, we cannot do home visits. So you know your context. What works for you? Which strategies will work as we start talking about these? And we ask you to consider them. You know your program, your people, your students the best to address these strategies that we're seeing here. Lack of time, language, differences of priorities. I would have any other, but we need to recognize the differences in priorities. Financial literacy, communication. Communication has always been a challenge, and so we hope to give you some things to consider to address those challenges that you've given us. But before I get into those strategies, we'd like to tell you very quickly how we came up with them, how we identified these particular strategies. This will explain what we have to share with you, how you can zero in on exactly what you need, and what we may not have. We started with a research question that was developed with the alliance that I was telling you about, primarily with the Oklahoma Native American group, and it is that what is known about the promising practices, in other words, it's the literature and the promising practices for rural schools with high Native American Indian populations to engage families in planning, supporting, and contributing to their children's careers and career choices. Now, that's a long research question, but believe it or not, it really helps us narrow our search. Because as you know, when you start looking on the internet, you're going to have thousands of returns. And even this very long research question helped us narrow our search for the research. And so one category that we really looked at were rural schools. That's one category as we were looking for. And then the second category was high Native American Indian population. And we had a third category to engage families. And we were told very loudly and clearly, not just the traditional parents, mothers and fathers, but the community, the larger, it might be a grandmother, it might be an uncle or an aunt, but the community and families in planning for their children's careers, how to encourage them, support them in their careers and career choices. So we had 4 categories. And if you started looking at it then, we put it in a Venn diagram. And perhaps in this Venn diagram, the orange would be rural, green, Native American, the blue would be career, and then the purple would be our family and community. But you can see where they could overlap in many different ways, and we found that in the literature. So we had to come up with a way to organize our thoughts. And as you can see here, that there are 15 overlapping zones. The first one is what I just pointed out. Number 1, rural. We gave it a number so that we could make it easier to talk about. Number 2, the Native American. And then you can see right between number 1 and number 2 that we have rural and Native American. And perhaps in the literature you wanted to look at, I don't know, number 8, which is going to be Native American and career choices. How do you support that? Or you could jump down to 14, Native American, family involvement, and then the career choices. So when you start looking through the literature, if you can keep this legend with the zones in mind, it helps you zero in. What are you most interested in working on? So when we started looking, we came up with 71 resources. So that was cutting it down quite a bit, if you think about it. And whenever we started looking at what was relevant, what gave us some relevant practices, some suggestions, and some barriers, addressing some of the barriers that you just named, we came down to 14 resources, and we annotated them. And we're going to provide that to you. Unfortunately, there were none that sat in zone 15. That was the one that said rural, family, Native American, and career. But there's still a lot of zones that might interest you. Number 8, Native American and career. Number 10, Native American and families. Or 14, Native American family and career. So when you start looking at what we've got to share for you to consider, there are several choices that you could scan through. On the reference resources, I think I'm going to address this a little bit later because I wanted to talk about those resources that we did identify, those 14 resources. We started off with identifying the practices that appeared in more than one resource. So they started becoming as common themes. And then we started grouping them into by intention or their goal, those practices. And we identified 10 of those themes. Some of those strategies fit in more than one of these themes. And these are the commonly occurring themes, strategies, just by name. And please note, they're in alphabetical order. The first one, capacity building with families, we're not even trying to suggest that they're more important than local wisdom or trust building or flexibility. Those are the themes that appear in the literature. You need to decide which one is of most importance to you. So that's talking about the resources that we've got to suggest. Down underneath the introductions pod is a pod called Files for Download. And you will see 3 different documents there. That's where these resources are located, and we're going to provide them to you. I'd like to just quickly talk about what's in there. But down, okay. The first tab, whenever you look at this Excel file, and we put this in an Excel file so you can sort them by the different zones. So I really want to point that out. And whenever you open up the file, you're going to see 3 tabs across the bottom: the background, references, and annotated. This is the background. It gives you all of that information that I just gave you, but a little bit more detailed. And you can go and study that at your convenience as you want to see more about how did we come up with those 14? Why just the 14? It'll give you more information about that. The next tab, which is the references, has all 71. And it provides you with the name of the article, the link to the article, the abstract provided by the authors, and then our coding, such as this is number 1. It fit in that category, number 1, rural. And so if you want to go and look through the ones we did not highlight, those 14, you have a direct link to all of those resources and a description of them and a direct link. Of the 14, we dug in a little bit deeper. And as you're going to see, it names the article, who's the author, gives you the link, and it gives you the promising practices, as you're going to see right here. We dug through it and found the promising practices, and we also found the barriers. And if you scroll across a little bit more, this is a screenshot so that I can show it to you. It will tell you which zone it addresses. Does it hit like zone number 8, Native American and career, or 14? And you can sort and find those strategy suggestions for you to take a look at. It's a lot of information. I would strongly suggest that you spend a little bit of time looking at those resources and examining it carefully. What do you have in place right now that works well? What are some of those challenges that you wanted to address? How is it working? Which of the strategies in here would work for you? And start working with your team. think I'm here at the arrow now. And work with your team. What are your goals? What is going to be your immediate goal? Who's going to work on it? And start planning your first steps. Communicate it. And I believe Kirsten is going to talk about some communication, who's going to come up next after me. So I think that's a great idea. And then evaluation. Evaluation is so loaded. I hate that term. But how will you, you've got your own programs, how will you know that you're being successful, that you're moving toward getting more family engagement? And as I mentioned, we've done this before in other workshops, and there is a sample integration map down in the files for download, and you can download that and take a look at it. And it was one example written by a university who wanted to increase their students in signing up. The Native American Alliance there in that university wanted to get them to sign up for careers. Consider, they were particularly interested, I believe, in the STEM careers and getting Native Americans to consider signing up and pursuing those degrees. And so I would challenge you, this is a time for you to look in there, dig in deep, and consider, work on it. And I would be more than happy to help you with that, answer any questions, anything else that you would need. There's my contact information. You can jot it down. But at